because I know I've sat in your seat and been on the other side of it, and it's tough. It's tough sitting there, but excited to break it down and talk about other games as well this week.
Absolutely, man. Pleasure to have you back on here. We're win or lose, you're coming back on, and hopefully in the future as well. So it was a great atmosphere at DKR. A lot of fun Saturday tailgating. To us, I mean, it felt like DKR was electric. I know there are people out there who's just going to scream about it. Not being a tough place to play after we get ran through like that. But
before we get into that, tell me real quick, because I've listened to some of your post game and stuff. But tell me, like, what's a tailgate? Like, what was the vibe? What was the food? What was going on?
So, I mean, I've told you this before we came on live. If you're asking for kind of the overall vibes, I think there was a lot of nervousness, a ton of nerves. Mm-hmm. I thought it was going to be a really, really tough game for Texas to win. I thought it'd be one field goal game one way or the other. And when I was telling people at the tailgate this, people were like, "What, you?" And I was like, I can even sense it the way you're responding. You're even like, yeah, you kind of agree with me. I just think there was a lot of nerves in the air, a little bit of anxiety, and just they didn't know exactly what was about to happen. Now, if you talk to Texas fans on Twitter all week, it was going to be a curb stomping. It'd be an easy win for Texas. And obviously not everybody was saying this, but I don't know, man. To me, it just kind of felt like that black cloud was kind of creeping up on the city. And little did I know that black cloud was Kirby Smart, the Georgia Bulldogs. And it was the start to a long night. But inside of the stadium, once we got in there, it felt like, hey, everybody believed. The energy was great. And then after a little while, the offensive struggles. Hello, Evan, in which I have something to address with you in a moment, Mr. Evan. So I'm glad you showed up. And welcome all of you other Georgia Bulldogs in here. But once it got going, I mean, like the vibes were great. Stadium was great. Energy was top notch. It felt like a top 5 matchup at DKR. But then with some of the offensive struggles that Texas was having, you could definitely tell some anxiety kind of set in pretty quickly. At least where I was kind of sitting. But I don't know. How was your day leading up to that game? I sensed that you had some quiet confidence rolling into maybe later in the week leading up to that game. Am I wrong there? I kind of feel like you baited me into this whole deal here.
So for the record, I there was no intent to bait you into a bet. What I was hoping for, to be honest, is I was hoping what's up, Axe? My boy Axe in here. What I was hoping is that, I like when big games, I like to have fun with people that I respect and good people. And I was honestly hoping for a good game. I didn't know which way it was going to go. I think my confidence leading up to it was exactly what I said on your show. It's like the last time Kirby Smart lost to a team not named Alabama was November 7th, 2020. So that is almost 4 full years. And when you put that into perspective, it is like, yes, I understand. I mean, Texas, we'll talk about it. Texas is a good football team. I don't think Texas is done. I don't think Texas fans have anything. It stings, just like 3 weeks ago when I was walking out of Bryant-Denny Stadium and Georgia had just lost to an Alabama team that clearly Georgia should have beaten, but somehow ended up down 28-0 in the first quarter to that football team. It's like we're closer, I think, than we are further away, despite what the score and what the game may have felt like in DKR. But that being said, I will say, like, the confidence is just in knowing Kirby Smart and knowing what he does specifically against guys who are this is very respectful to Steve Sarkisian. I want to be clear about that. But to guys who are quote unquote offensive geniuses, like Kirby Smart he just knows, like he knows he can look at an offense and he can look at the tendencies and he can do exactly what he did on Saturday, which is scheme up some simulated pressure, some disguises, some shifts on defense to confuse a quarterback. He's done it with Josh Heupel and those high-powered Tennessee offenses. He's just done it enough that like, okay, your chances are pretty good that that's the team that's going to show up. Now, for me, it was the question I had that I didn't say out loud was, Carson Beck and Georgia's offense, right? Because Carson Beck, I mean, Georgia still turned the ball over 3 times, and they turned it over 4 times versus Alabama and had a safety. It's like, ugh, that's tough. But the defense was where the confidence was.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. That looked like a Kirby Smart, vintage defense right there.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, I think when, obviously had a subpar game at quarterback, Texas's offensive line really struggled in this game. You're talking about giving up 6 sacks coming into it, giving up 7 on Saturday night. Hurts a lot, to be honest, to watch Texas struggle offensively because, a lot of times under Coach Sarkisian and in the Ewers era, we moved the ball so well, and it didn't seem like we had much hope there in the first half. Obviously, look at the total offensive numbers, pretty dang rough. I mean, Texas ran for 1.1 per carry on Saturday night. That's not going to be an elite defense, but you referenced some of the different schemes that Kirby came up with, and as a X's and O's guy, I mean, it's super impressive, man. Everybody's posted a little bit about it, but the very late stem from the odd front to the to the all-out pressure.
Yeah, that 6-man pressure.
Yeah, I'm thinking, to double A, that double A blitzes, I think is what it was. Like, super impressive right there. It's obviously the timing of it.
Yeah.
There's another time where I think he lined up in like another double A line and brought the corner off the edge when Quinn fumbled. Sorry, it's all just meshing together now. I have to think about it.
Yeah, a lot of that. And, my buddy Josh Hanser, shout out to Josh in here. He said that, Kirby did it to Lane Kiffin in 2023 as well. Like, yeah, that Ole Miss offense was cooking, and they came into Athens and Kirby held them to 17 points and really just suffocated that Lane Kiffin offense as well. And what he does, what Texas felt is what a lot of teams over the last 4 years have felt, is where Mississippi State, I watched the film from Mississippi State, and it was clear in the second half, people were talking about the secondary getting cooked and all these things. And what it was is Kirby just they weren't showing, they were literally lining up, and they had a couple of rotations in the secondary, but they stopped doing a lot of the motion on defense. They stopped doing a lot of the shifts. They put guys on an island, and and some of those guys ended up getting beat for Mississippi State to score. But he was doing it because Georgia was up 34-10, and he wasn't going to show any. He was done showing Steve Sarkisian some of the stuff he was going to do, right? And I think people just underestimate, Kirby Smart's his ability to just not care about a final score, and his ability to just put his team in a situation versus a team that they should blow the doors off of. And it looks like, who is this team? And in reality, he's putting guys in one-on-one pressure situations because he knows what he has, and he saves a lot of it. And I think that's what Texas felt. And I think Texas, I'll also say this. I do think that I don't think Texas, when you become one-dimensional like that, it's hard to beat any team. I don't care who you are. Like, I don't care, it'd be hard for Georgia to beat a team if you were averaging 1.1 yards per carry. It didn't help that the quarterback situation that Quinn Ewers, he felt you sense it, it as a fan, like when your quarterback, when he's getting spooked. And even though there are times when it's like he had a little bit more time, but just that defense was cooking enough and confusing him enough that he was getting a little spooked. I don't think the offensive line of Texas played necessarily as bad. I mean, they weren't good, but I don't think they played as bad as a 7 sacks, 10 tackles for a loss offensive line would show on a stat sheet. I do think that Quinn specifically, I think he got spooked, man. And when that happens, it's tough to come back from. So kudos to him for coming back in the second half and slinging it and going down and putting a couple scores on the board and trying to figure something out, but because that's not easy once you get in that situation.
It was just, a game that a lot of people I felt like expected some fireworks. A lot of people assumed that Texas's defense wasn't going to stand up to the test and slow down Carson Beck in Georgia. And then they assumed that Quinn and Sarkisian would cook up Georgia's defense because they had given up some points in other games. And we got far from that. I'm not taking anything away from Georgia, but I think obviously Georgia's best offense on Saturday night was probably the defense. played really, really dang good. I mean, they punched Texas in the chin. We had some disagreement about this on the post game yesterday. I definitely think that Georgia punched Texas in the mouth, blew us off the ball a lot there in that first half. Sorry if you're watching, Nash. I love you regardless. But in that first half, we were getting whipped around. And it doesn't mean I don't love our guys. It's just call it how it is. And that happens in this league. That happens even when you have some elite players on your other side, on your own side, when you're matched up with a Georgia, with an Alabama, some of these better defenses. But I mean, I don't know why I shouted out Bama right now. They just took another loss, but we're so reactionary. Our fans, everything's just blown up. You know, it's like Quinn struggles. We can't have Quinn in there anymore. We got to go to Arch. I mean, the crowd's reaction to when Arch came in, like I felt, you know, Quinn was really struggling, yes. And we definitely needed some type of change. But I feel like we're just so like live or die in every moment on the football field. And it's like, dude, we lost to Georgia. And what did you just say? Y'all are 51-3, 50-3, whatever it is.
Yeah, 51-3 in the last 54 games.
And why I felt sketchy about this matchup all week long was because Quinn Ewers looked very rusty against Oklahoma. He did not have to do much to beat them. And I'm not a Quinn hater. I love Quinn. I hope Quinn does what we want him to do at Texas. But we've got to call it how it is. He was rusty against Oklahoma. And the running game is the reason that we kind of separated in that game. Quinn threw a lot of very short, intermediate passes, a lot of screens. We just, not a knock on him, we just didn't have to ask him to do too much against the Sooners. Now, you look at Georgia, and it's like we're expecting a big game. We need a big game. But like you said, the offensive line doesn't help him out. And we're not opening up anything in the run game. Plus, I mean, we're up against a very good Georgia defense. But why I felt sketch all week is because, like you talked about, Georgia hadn't played their best football this season. Yeah. I really kind of stinks they chose. At least I don't think your offense did in Austin, but your defense, would you say that's one of the better performances, if not the best performance of 2024 for you guys?
Oh yeah, for sure, the best performance of 2024. Yeah, I think it's the best performance by a good margin in 2024. And I think the biggest difference is, I mean, yeah, Georgia hasn't been very good against the run game, especially on the edge, and Georgia's gotten more pressure this year than maybe they have in years past, believe it or not. But they haven't gotten pressure like that. So yeah, it was the best by far. And shout out, again, my buddy Josh Hancher, he talked about success rates, right? Where Georgia's offense success rate was only 32%, and Texas was 27%. So, capitalizing over turnovers, both defenses played well. Georgia's offense was definitely nothing to write home about, and but Georgia's defense, when Georgia needed them, and that's kind of Kirby Smart's MO, right? Like I mentioned it last week. The dude can motivate a team, especially on the defensive side of the ball, where Kirby Smart had to know. Like, he had to know, watching his quarterback and watching his offense this year, he had to know that, like, for Georgia to win this game, the defense was going to have to show up, like, period. That, Georgia could probably potentially get in a shootout with Texas, but probably not. Like, this isn't, that Texas defense is significantly better than Alabama's defense that Georgia, ended up bombing away to make that game, close. And there's no other defense that Georgia's played this year that I think comes close to Texas. So I think Kirby knew that, and I think he spent all week challenging Texas, challenging the defense, spent all week, using all that, everything he had. Now, the challenge is, right, for Texas and for Georgia, is Georgia can't let this, victory be big enough that it turns into a lackadaisical performance in 2 weeks versus Florida and down the stretch, right? And Texas can't make this law. Like, you can't turn one loss into two. Like, that's just the biggest challenge right now, because both of these teams, everything that they want is in front of them. SEC championship, college football playoff, it's all still there for the taking. And it's hard. It's good for Texas, because I think Georgia, it's going to be hard for them to get as motivated as they were for this game, for the games down the stretch. And now you're in this situation where it's like, all right, Kirby Smart's going to have to go into his bag of tricks and figure out what he can do to get that level again, because Because Texas, it's easy after you lose to turn around and be like, unless you're Alabama, I guess, because they lost to Vanderbilt and then turned around and almost lost to South Carolina and then lost to Tennessee. So something's going on with Alabama. But besides Alabama, I think some of these coaches know how to get their teams motivated after a loss.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And that's going to be the challenge for Texas and Steve Sarkisian, getting them back up because, a lot of people wanted this game. I'm sure players could feel it. Players seem to be really excited for this one, obviously. And but it's one game in the grand scheme of things. So much happened in this game. And Evan, I'm going to go ahead and this is where I'm going to talk about you for a moment. I stand in the trenches on Twitter after a Texas loss. SEC fans don't know this because we've never tangled up. Mm-hmm. I'm going to respond to every comment because it's fun, and I normally don't ever say anything that draws a lot of attention. I'm never the person that's screaming Texas is going to wreck the SEC. Mm-hmm. But damn straight, if I thought we were, I would say it. If I thought there was an actual shot, I would say it now. And I drew a lot of attention with my narratives tweet Saturday morning. I said Texas can kill a few narratives. I never said we will. I said we can. I still get it. People got on me there about halftime because it was 23-0, and they stayed on me, especially after our students and a few others got involved in the game and decided to throw stuff around. What's your take on that, John? Is that a if you saw Georgia folks do that, like 1 to 10, how much would it bother you there?
Oh, it would. I would be livid, and mostly I would be livid because, there's no I guess for me, because I've played on a field before in those situations with fans and angst and whatever, it's just completely unnecessary. I think for me, it's just more of that you got to act like you've been there before, and when there is a bad call, you can certainly let the officials absolutely have it, but you can't be there, cheerleaders and people security and all these people standing there that you're just throwing crap. That's who you're hitting. You're not, it's not at the end of the day, I just think it's just unnecessary. So I would be livid. What I will say is I was at the Braves game in, gosh, what year was that? With St. Louis when the infield fly rule happened in the wild card game, and the Braves fans threw trash on the field, and I was in the left field side on the left field, about 3 rows from the left field fence. And my buddy Brian, who's a huge baseball fan, was beside me, and he grabbed my arm and he's like, we're not throwing anything. And he was like, and he was so mad, and trash was going over. So I've been in a situation where you have a terrible call and all of a sudden people start throwing stuff. So I get the emotions, but man, in this game, you got to act like you've been there before. You can't feel like you're competing with Tennessee. If you want to be the real UT, you can't be throwing trash on the field like Tennessee over there. Because that puts you in a tough spot.
Yeah, man, I agree with you. I think you mentioned that you watched a little of the post-game show yesterday. We had a student on there, defended the trash throwing pretty aggressively. I love the kid. He's entitled to his take. I think it's flat out embarrassing. It drove that made me more. This is going to sound awful. That bothered me more than how the game played out.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Because I don't have any control over either situation, but the game's a game, man, and it's one play, and it's selfishly is why I care about a little bit of it, because I knew that people were going to blow up on Twitter. We're going to hear that, oh, it's exactly what we thought they were. Aggies are like, we told you. We told you. Some of the most scum Aggies on Twitter. I'm talking to you, Agnox. You can hear me, buddy. All 4 of you guys. Godly, man. And that is where, Evan, I'm bringing you back up. These Aggies were so on top of me about me, I was out there throwing stuff, and I was so annoyed with a student. So, I think Evan talked about it. I think Coach called us communist or something for throwing. I don't know. I saw something. I unfollowed both, put both on 12-hour punishment. I was like, I'm just doing this so that I don't say anything rude to you. I don't want to punish you for being mad at the Aggies. So I apologize to you, Evan, and Coach, if you're out there. I didn't say anything to you, Coach, about this on Twitter. Evan and I already talked about it. But yeah, dude, I've never been that bothered by Twitter. I don't think in the almost 3 years I've had that account. They were all over us. I was like, dude, I've already posted about it. I am firmly against what they just did.
Yeah.
It is what, maybe 2% of the crowd. It drives me crazy. It is what it is. They'll live and learn. But yeah, just making sure. I know that Georgia, I saw the clip from the national title game. I'm sure Georgia fans were firmly against that. Most people were. I've seen Tennessee, and it's just tough.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? You have to ask yourself as a Texas fan, am I okay being grouped with Tennessee with all the backlash they took? And now Tennessee is like, whatever it is, 2-3 years later, people are still referencing Tennessee throwing trash on the field, right? And it is like, no matter the situation, like your school ends up getting memed pretty quickly when you start doing stuff like that. And I think for Texas, it made it worse that the officials like conferred. The call was an atrocious call. The call was a terrible call. It was not like, in no realm was that defensive pass interference. Like, it was a terrible call. But even with it being a terrible call, now you've joined like a meme group for a little bit, and that's I know you are used to it with Texas A&M. Like Georgia, we're used to it with Florida. When we lost to Alabama, lounge. No, why throw mustard and golf balls? What are you gonna do with mustard and golf balls? Drink the beer. Don't be throwing the beer. What are we talking about? Like the beer is what you drink when that situation is happening, so you feel better about yourself. Mustard, throw mustard. But yeah, just don't end up being a meme. Like, that's just the thing with Texas. It's like it's a tough place to be when you're in that situation, right? Where it's like, all right, well, now that's where you are, and that's where you're going to be for a while. In Georgia, we had it with Florida when we lost to Alabama, right? Florida fans coming out of the woodwork, haven't won a freaking thing. Terrible. The trash that Florida puts on the field is their actual football team, not water bottles or anything. And they came after us. They came after us as well for losing that game. And, like, Georgia got exposed. Like, Kirby, it's over. Like, so. I understand what you're saying with Texas A&M. I just think at the end of the day, it's like, you just gotta control your emotions a little bit. Act like you've been there if you want to be there.
Yeah, no doubt, man. And that's like, I have such a great rapport with all the rivals and everyone on there. I mean, I've honestly, like, the last few years, A&M's crushed it in recruiting, and like, so I say I expect high things out of them on the football field. They think I'm ultimately just trying to jinx them, but yeah. Long story short, I've mostly said all that to apologize to Evan and Chris. Aggies got in the way a little bit of, like Evan said, the beginning of a beautiful relationship and friendship. Yeah. And that's the best part about it, though. And I'm not even, A&M looks good right now. I'm not saying this as a guarantee or prediction, but like, we still have to play those guys. So I think it was funny and hilarious that, they went to the links that they did. But hey, man, we've got a big target on our back. I understand how it goes. I'm not trying to be a whiner or anything. It was a fun overall day, and I will continue to stand in there in the trenches and battle back. Well, who are you talking? Oh, you're talking to Evan. Okay, yeah, Rudy, you and Evan can handle that. Both two good guys. So y'all be respectable in the comments, but. Yeah, man, long story short, real quick summation up for the game for myself. Georgia punched us in the mouth. Their front seven kind of overwhelmed Texas. I think our offensive line is full of good football players. Now, at the same time, sometimes it takes a little bit of an ass kicking to realize the type of new waters that you're swimming in, I guess. If Texas met up with Georgia again, I think we'd see a much more prepared Texas team. I think Sarkisian is probably a little bit embarrassed by the way that went. And you guys know that I love Sarkisian as much as anyone on this planet. But he has a stinker once or twice a year, and this was a stinker of a plan. Kirby took away all the hots on RPOs. We didn't block well enough to make the run game effective in RPOs. All of the different inside leverage that you guys all seem to always have, just kind of interrupting our short, quick stuff. Very impressive defensive performance out of Georgia. I thought Texas's defense did everything that they could to hang in there. I guess they gave up the one touchdown in the third quarter after we cut it to 8. That hurt a lot. That was 2 big pass plays for Georgia. 2 really,
when you had them 3rd and 10, and then they hit Arian Smith for 21, and then the little flea flicker for 43 is tough.
Was it Delp or Lawson on
It was
the?
Oscar Delp, yeah, Oscar
Okay.
Delp on that little flea flicker situation. We
Yeah,
call
and
that
so
we ran that play in high school. It's called cherry picker pass, which is it's a classic. I played tight end, so I caught that play a little bit in high school. It's a classic, like put the tight end out the back door, faking a reverse around. So
yeah, it looks like you kind of just like are just leaking out because I want to say you have another receiver that's running deeper, and then you're just kind of
yeah,
trailing him right there, a little leak. It looks something like Lincoln Riley used to do a lot. It's tough
yeah,
to watch. And I was in the corner of the end zone right there, right above the I guess it would be the L or the T, whichever it was. I think it's the L on our end. And so it was coming right at me, and I was like, Jesus Christ, he is wide open. There's nobody within
nobody.
10, 15 yards. And so I'm with you. I'm with you guys. Like, hey, like, I'm not saying that Arch is the best option to win a championship, but like we've got to see better out of Quinn in these type of games. Um, we'll talk more about Quinn throughout the week, but real quick, John, before we get to one more thing regarding this game, like, what are your thoughts on Quinn Ewers? Does he look like he's potentially hurt to you? Did you watch much Quinn in the past? To me, it
Yeah.
looks like a very different player at the moment.
Yeah, I've watched a good bit of Quinn Ewers, both on film and clearly live in some games. He looks something looks off. I don't know if he's hurt. I don't know how hurt he is. I don't know, but he definitely, for me, it, there is a difference between, I mentioned it being spooked, right? But there's a difference between being spooked and being like, there were some plays that he made that I felt like he was trying to compensate for something, whether it's an injury or whatever. And the guy, I mean, he's missed time. He's missed time every year he's been there. He's not the most durable quarterback, and I like him. I like him a lot, but he's certainly not the most durable. And if he's missed time, and then you got this freaking Georgia defense with Jalen Walker and Mikael Williams and all these guys like coming at your throat, like it's a tough situation. So he looked hurt to me, but I think I wonder how much of it was just clearly Georgia suffocating the run game. Because I mean, when you suffocate that run game, all the pressure then falls on that quarterback. And again, I think Texas, like I think the Michigan game was a big game for Texas. I think Michigan is a physical football team. I don't think they're necessarily very good on offense, but they are physical. And so I think Texas has been in this situation before. But man, it is different. It's just different. In the SEC, it's different when I'll just say it, like, and this is going to sound however it's going to sound, but it's different when the Georgia Bulldogs or historically the Alabama Crimson Tide or one of these teams gets off the bus and comes in there. Like, it's just different. Like when they lock those gates, like it's not Michigan as physical as Michigan can be. It's not, Oklahoma even, like it's a different beast. It's a different beast. And it's mostly a different beast because of the depth, right? So like when they're rotating in fresh guys, when they're playing, almost 30 guys on defense, like, what are you going to do? Like, they're all fresh and they're all like coming at you every single down. And they're all good. Like they're all 4 and 5 stars. Like there are no scrubs that they're having to rotate in. And, I think the example where I think Sarkisian, is going to have to figure it out is like, I like Bill Norton a lot. I like Bill Norton. Bill Norton could not see the field at Georgia on the defensive side of the football. And that, I think at the end of the day is like, those are the things you got to think about if you're Texas, because Sarkisian, he's done a lot of what kind of Lane Kiffin has done a lot of really good work in the transfer portal with skill players, wide receivers, especially A.D. Mitchell, Isaiah Bond, like some of those guys. But man, that defensive front, like, I don't know, you just gotta find a way to build depth in there. And I don't mean, like, I think the Texas defense is really good. I think that the Texas defense, the defensive front is very good. I think they're very physical, but they just don't go as deep as a Georgia, for example, does. And I think like that's what you got to figure out. How do you build like real depth? So you're not rotating in Bill Norton and some of these guys that couldn't see the field at Georgia. So
Well, that's been a little bit of an issue with Texas the last couple of cycles is landing the that top tier defensive tackle. talent, and I'm not knocking the guys that we did end up in our class. We've developed really well there lately, and I'm not knocking the starters that we have right now. I thought they played pretty well. Georgia didn't exactly do a ton in the run game, and they stood up really, really tall in some third and shorts, fourth and shorts, and so. But man, I'm with you, man. The defensive line, it's fun to play Georgia because it gives you a quick realization of like where you're at and what you need to work on, where you're lacking. And so it seems like I've dogged my horns in it. I'm really not trying to. It's just like, hey, we're behind Georgia at the moment. Things to clean up. I think there are things that can be worked out. I'd feel really good about not giving up 7 sacks to the Dogs if we play again. I feel like Sarkisian would have a lot better plan. I think this is a really great point right here. I've watched Texas a lot this year, obviously. I've wondered when somebody really takes advantage of Texas and the lack of depth or lack of deep balls that we're, in shot plays that we're calling and taking right now. We haven't really thrown the ball down the field very much. And so, I said all week leading up to the game, Georgia worked to stop the run, smother the mid to intermediate pass game, and take their chances with shot plays. That literally is what happened in this game. Georgia took away inside leverage on all the skinny posts, quick slants, drags, things like that, muddied it up for Quinn, and gave him that fierce pass rush just enough time to get there. And sometimes he had no time, and they didn't even have to cover.
And when that happens, right, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how quote unquote bad the Georgia secondary has looked. When you're shutting down everything and Georgia has big physical corners and safeties that can run with anybody, like good luck. Like if that's what you're left with, if you're left for those intermediate to deep shots, like there aren't a lot of teams that can win against Georgia trying that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's tough because it is humbling because you feel good about your program, and then you get in there and you get whipped around. I don't think many people had Texas losing by 15 except for, and I hate to give him credit, I hate to say his name, I hate to admit that he was correct in this spot, even though we had a great talk about this game. Chris Marler, you buddy, I love you, man, and to hear him call it the way that it played out, and to hear him tell me on the phone and then on my channel too, like, hey, this is kind of what I'm thinking. That's tough. And so,
listen, Chris Marler is, I think he's the biggest Georgia fan I know, probably second to Bobby Wilson, my buddy Bobby Wilson, who I think is the biggest Georgia fan I know. So when Marler says that, it's because it's his team. Like he's followed his team. He knows his team. Like he said it. Like he said that about Georgia with Tennessee. He said that. I mean, he's called this a lot because he knows Georgia because he's one of us.
He's the top dog.
He is the top dog. We're gonna get Marler. See, Marler, that's the thing, is like he made a bet too that said if he would get to 1,000 followers, then he would either call the dogs with me or bark with 3-year Letterman, and so he's got to do some barking too.
Oh, okay. Extreme Gamer Mac, I'm gonna say, man, like time will tell, brother. You're taking a lot. You're taking a lot out of a loss to a very good Georgia team. I get it, man. We looked really bad at times on offense. Defense wasn't. I don't think it was all that bad. Yeah, you can see 30 points, but you guys also have some pretty short fields to play there. So I do thank you for being here, though. And regardless of what you think about my team, we'll see. Tough schedule coming up. Tough-ish. Nothing.
I mean, it's not really that tough. Like I think. I mean, we'll see how Texas A&M. We'll see what Texas A&M is made of versus LSU this weekend to see, like, kind of. But Texas A&M has a tough schedule. I think Texas has you can navigate the schedule of what you got, especially if you can, not be one-dimensional. If you can run the football, which you'll be able to do against most of these teams, I think you'll be fine.
I hope so. Coach, I hope you listened in earlier and you heard my apology. Big respect. Thank you for being here. I look forward to listening to you and John here in a little while. But yeah, man, like we're gonna have to run the ball, and that's where we're missing a Cedric Baxter. It really, really hurts Texas. That was our hammer. He 5-star recruit coming out of Florida. Just so excited to watch that kid. Came into the offense and was part of a really deep running back room last year and contributed. And so we were expecting a big year from him. Jonathan, brother, this is one of my best friends in the world. I witnessed, John, we witnessed, I don't know if you heard this on the post-game show. We witnessed a little bit of a fight afterwards.
Yeah.
I think some dog students or some younger dog fans came late. You know, they're celebrating their win, rightfully in the crowd. Well, we're like outside of the stadium, walking towards MLK, and the little pocket of Georgia fans flood out, and a couple kids jump in a couple older guys' faces, and they're flexing and barking in the face, and then just one guy makes contact, and then he gets hit. And I was like, oh Christ, here we go. SEC, baby. You know, this is part of it now. It's how it goes. It was wild to see, but at the same time, the Georgia fans that I interacted with all the pregame, I went around and I sat just above where Georgia entered and exited the field. And so a lot of Georgia fans around there, talked to some really cool dogs, and even took a couple of funny horns down pictures and whatnot. But I wasn't involved. But yeah, so overall, great experience. I love Georgia coming to Austin. We were all excited for that one when the schedule dropped.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah.
I love it. You weren't with any kids, obviously.
No, not my kids.
Okay, so you didn't get to see any Georgia fans spit dip on any kids, because that's what we also do. We bark at people and we spit tobacco on children. So I don't know if anybody's told you that, but that's kind of our MO.
No, man. So
mostly Auburn kids. Mostly Auburn. To be fair, it's mostly Auburn kids that we spit on. But no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I will say it's so funny because like you saw the 99% of Georgia fans I know bark at other Georgia fans or bark at their team. Like it is super rare that you see an actual Georgia fan barking at another player or at another fan base. And usually when you see that, it's because it's some young kids who got a little bit in the sauce, students or whatever who got in the sauce, and that's what you're seeing. Or it's pretenders from like Old Row or Barstool, like trying to pretend they're Georgia fans, so they dress up as Georgia fans and then go like barking at people and record it for their engagement. So but
that's pretty funny. I didn't know that.
Coach Hayes says we know that the Auburn kids are dipping their own tobacco, which tough but fair. It's
pretty funny, man. And yeah, that's the thing is like they're super young. They're very excited. 15 years ago, the way that I acted after a couple of road games, I'm not like mooing at anybody or anything like that, but like I'm sure I was talking and having a really, really good time.
Yeah. Yeah, barking at other fan bases or rival fan bases. I'm just telling you, next year when Texas comes to Athens, we're going to bring you and all your friends, and you're going to come to our tailgate, and you're going to experience like a real Georgia football game, and I promise you, like you'll see, like it's very different, as most fan bases are.
Yeah, I mean. I'll be honest, it was pretty funny. Y'all are kicking off, and then like there's faint barking from one corner of DKR, and I'm just like, all right. I went to a high school that was the Bulldogs. Take me back a little bit. We weren't red and black, but oh man. All right. Well,
Bojangles.
I've never even tried it. Is it that good?
Bojangles is so good. Bojangles biscuits, legitimately very, very good. And I know Texas, I've spent a fair bit of time in Austin for work-related purposes over the years. And for me, I'm always a breakfast tacos guy when I'm out there. But Bojangles biscuits, man, we'll definitely have to send you some. They're my favorite for real.
Okay. Yeah, Coach, I'm not missing the trip to Athens next year. Y'all just punched us in the nose on my birthday in front of me and 105,000 of my friends. So like, yeah, brother, I'm coming. All right. I'm going to be there. But all right, John, I owe you something that I didn't think I was going to have to do.
I used to work, Evan. I don't work anymore. Evan's always giving me a hard time.
I realize Evan doesn't care. He's coming for you when he has that op. And so I respect that out of you, Evan. That's why I'm glad that you're here. But with all that being said, we're moving off Texas and Georgia. But first, Go Dogs! Sick 'em!
Yes, that was
God,
solid. That was
I
very good.
I ran naked on the beach for the Horns last year via wager. I've now barked on live with I don't know how many people we have in here. Georgia
Well,
fans, I hope you can respect that because
for
I wasn't gonna just half-ass it. So
for your first effort, that was fantastic. I think you held the go just long enough, which
okay.
people they can't figure that out. You hit the sick 'em. That felt good. The bark, it's always like the bark. I think the bark always will get better over time. So the more that Georgia beats Texas, the more you're going to improve
We
the
can make
bark.
this
But
wager next year. Run it back.
It was solid. It was solid for a first time for someone who doesn't do this. Very solid.
I know, buddy. Think about how I felt. I wanted to do it the second we got on, and I waited until we're 41 minutes in. That was tough.
You waited till everybody showed up. So,
well, I'm hoping people got bored and left, and then I was like sick, but no, I have no idea. I definitely, as soon as the game ended, I was like, it's no big deal. It won't be that bad. And then when today got here, I was like, I got to bark on the channel. That's okay. So 1-1 on wagers with this channel. We had the Michigan guy on saying the eyes of Texas. Unfortunately for Texas and Coach Sarkisian, Georgia is a little bit of a different animal. And so, apologies to any Georgia Bulldog fans or actual Bulldogs that I might have offended out there with that bark. It was pretty rough.
I will say I'm slightly disappointed because I did at least look at the lyrics and the chords for the Eyes of Texas. I had my guitar. I had a cowboy hat. Like we were going to do it up. So next time.
Next year, man. Yeah, like Coach Hayes said, please, guys, if you're watching Longhorn, get Georgia Bulldog. Maybe you root for somebody else. Like this video for Johnny. He's been doing a great job these last 2 weeks as he's come on. Been a lot of fun talking ball with this man. And obviously settling up on some wagers there. But appreciate you all being here. And if it's cool with you, Johnny, we'll talk a couple of other SEC games.
I would love to. Let's do it.
All right, man. A big one, obviously, in Knoxville. Tennessee takes down Alabama. What's your first impressions? You saw that score. I know that you probably watched a little bit of that one leading up to our game. I didn't get to watch as much, but I tried to go back and see the highlights. But so what were your thoughts that you watched the Vols take down the Crimson Tide?
Yeah, listen, I don't know. Alabama, Alabama has lost games before, right? They haven't lost to Vandy in a very long time, but Alabama has lost games under Nick Saban, especially whether they're big games, whether they're games they maybe shouldn't have lost. I mean, that stuff has happened.
Yeah.
What I've always seen and what I said when Alabama lost to Vanderbilt, I said, look out, because now it's a joyless murder ball time, right? Like it is time. These guys, like they're Nick Saban's players, the majority of them, like this is, joyless murder ball. This team is coming out with a chip on their shoulder. They're coming out with that first half versus Georgia. That team is about to show up, and it just has not. And so for me, my thoughts are Tennessee. First of all, Tennessee, kudos to Tennessee. Tennessee's defense is a lot better. Like Tennessee, what they're doing is they flipped the script this year. They flipped the script where they're playing physical defense. They're playing solid, sound defense. They're playing solid gap scheme. They're really good in coverage right now, getting to the quarterback. And they're running the ball. And that's Tennessee. Like they just flipped the script from what they've been under Josh Heupel. So kudos to them. But at the same time, I mean, Alabama, man, I don't know. Like there is no it's clearly no leadership on that team right now, and clearly no pulse in that jersey, man. It's like no one is scared. Georgia, I guess, is the only team in America that's still scared of Alabama. And there is no fear. There's no fear when that team runs out of the tunnel anymore. And so I think for me, that was the lesson I learned was, I mean, when Jalen Milroe, seeing him get rattled in that stadium was shocking. Like it was really shocking. And again, like I thought Tennessee, I honestly thought Tennessee was going to win this game because I watched Alabama versus Vanderbilt in South Carolina, but it was still surprising to me that Alabama like was just the fight was just wasn't there. And once Nico played terrible. Like, he was overthrowing everybody, just playing terrible. And once he settled in and they started running the ball and they started connecting on a few of those throws, it was like you just knew, you felt that it was over. And that's not a lot. You don't feel that with Alabama a lot. So that's my takeaway. My takeaway is like it's a lack of leadership. Yeah, watching two receivers do a fadeaway jumper like a basketball player. I mean, and the Alabama offensive coordinator, they asked him about that in the press conference today, I believe, and he said everything that happens on the field is coached. So they were telling these guys, like, coaching these guys to do that, I guess. I don't know. It's just such a different mentality. And that was my takeaway. Kudos to Tennessee. They're running the ball, playing physical defense. I think Tennessee is going to be a problem if they can keep up that defensive side of the ball, especially. And Nico can continue to figure it out. But Alabama is clearly not a problem. And I don't know. I don't know where they go from here.
It's pretty crazy to watch Alabama, week to week in tight ball games against
South Carolina
teams that they dominate for a long time.
I mean,
South Carolina easily could have lost that game. Georgia easily could have lost that game. I mean, you're talking about them. Things didn't work out the way they did. These guys could have lost their last 4 ball games. I didn't trust Nico to win this game. And like the thing is right now is he's not really having to, because like you said, Dylan Sampson's been really good. And the defense is going to keep them in almost any game that they play. I mean, that's the way it feels right now. They got hot in the third quarter there, got shut out in the first half, had 2 really nice drives. I think they had 7-play, 91-yard drive, and then a 5-play, 75-yard drive. So they figured something out in the run game with Sampson. Nico had like a big 55-yard toss. And I mean, go look at Bama's drive chart in the fourth quarter. It is rough.
It's atrocious.
It's like 4 plays now. One of the drives is a 1-play pick. So really, it's what I have 3 plays, or sorry, 3. If you exclude the last drive, the 1-play interception in the game, you have 3 drives resulting in 3 yards, no first downs. One of those, you had 4 plays. You had the turnover on down. Did nothing late in the game. Did they throw the ball with Milroe too much? It seems like they ran him a billion times against you guys, and then since then they've kind of taken it easy on his legs.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think so. So what happened is, Nico early in the season, if you look at Nico's game log, like NC State, for example, not a great team, but NC State, Nico ran for 65 yards versus NC State. So when he was getting pressured, like he was like taking off. He was using his legs. They were doing a little bit more RPO game, and they went away from that. The last like 3 weeks. So in the loss to Oklahoma, for example, Nico only ran for 17 yards. He ran for 15 yards. Or the loss to Arkansas, he ran for 15 yards versus Oklahoma. He ran for 1 yard versus Florida in that game that went to overtime. And he had 9 carries for 44 yards. I think Josh Heupel went back to that run game, went back to that RPO game. And I don't know what Kalen DeBoer was thinking. I don't know if is Jalen Milroe hurt maybe? Because if you look at that situation, I mean, that's what happened at Georgia. At Georgia, I mean, the dude just took over 16 carries for 117 yards. And then in the last 3 weeks, he's had that similar vibe with Nico, like 7 carries for 10 yards, 18 carries for 36, and 14 for 11 in this game. And he just hasn't been able to get it going. And Jalen Milroe, I'll say this, and we can wrap up Alabama, but Jalen Milroe is not – you should never have a game. If Jalen Milroe is attempting 45 passes in a game, something is wrong. Something Absolutely. Is clearly wrong with your offense, because he is not a 45 pass attempts QB in any scenario.
No, absolutely. And I would even say the same thing for Texas in the way that we have played football. Like when we get into the 40s, normally we're not winning a lot of those games. But yeah, a great football game, a great Tennessee defense, a huge win for Coach Heupel's Vols. Definitely remain a player there in the SEC. Let's go on to another game similar to ours. A lot of hype, a lot of excitement and build up that really kind of turned into be a stinker. LSU took care of Arkansas and Fayetteville rather easily from the looks of it, and dominated that Arkansas offense. What do you think about that game?
Yeah, I mean, I think LSU is finding their way on defense. I think LSU is a team where, last year they couldn't stop anybody. This year they've seem to have figured it out. I think the big thing for LSU is very similar, like you said, to Georgia versus Texas in some ways, because they just made Arkansas completely one-dimensional. I mean, Arkansas ran for 38 yards on 19 carries. Bobby Petrino just basically like abandoned the run. He was like, I'm just done, because they could not run the ball. And again, Arkansas just doesn't have Taylon Green. I like Taylon Green, but he's just not the guy that's if he's throwing it for 30 times in a game, it's not going well for you. And so I think between Garrett and Nussmeier like finding his way, that LSU defense finding their way, it's going to be interesting. I think LSU has an opportunity to be a playoff team. I mean, LSU is right there, especially when you look at their schedule coming down the list. I mean, they have to play Texas A&M this weekend. They have to play Alabama. I guess I'll say it. They have to play Vanderbilt. I mean, might as well say it. It's a ranked team, but if they can get over, if they can get over the hump versus A&M, if they can show up and win this game, especially if they kind of dominate this game versus Texas A&M, I think LSU's getting real close to punching a playoff ticket.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're not going to leave a 2-loss LSU out of the college football playoffs. So you're just thinking if they can beat A&M or Alabama,
1 or 2,
even if what would it be, a 10-3 LSU team that makes or loses in the SEC title game? Like, I mean, they're still going to get in.
Yep.
I think Texas and Georgia is going to be a lot of fun. Just for you guys kind of commenting, let's be respectful in the comments. I'll say that it's easy to throw stones at any university for things. Right now we've got everybody talking on us. So leave Georgia's issues alone, at least on this channel, brother. But so yeah, man, a great game as far as if you're an LSU Tiger. I liked LSU to win that game. I got a lot of resistance for saying that. Everybody was kind of assumed that Fayette Nam was going to be a trap for them, and I don't know. It's not a great matchup in my opinion. The way that LSU has been rushing the passer, stepped it up a lot. They looked gross against the run early in the season with USC a little bit, but then South Carolina in that first half, they were kind of getting chewed up. And then when they lost Harold Perkins, a lot of naturally just thought that defense would regress a little bit or even more, but they really stepped it up over there for LSU. This will put me in a better mood. But did you watch Oklahoma get ran out of their own palace or whatever they call that place in Norman?
What in the world is Brent Venables doing? Because again, South Carolina, I don't think South Carolina's a bad football team. I mean, South Carolina, LSU, it was a 3-point, it was 36-33 or whatever. Like I think that South Carolina is a better football team than we probably give them credit for. But to get the doors, that was a good comment. To get the doors blown off in your own place by Shane Beamer. I mean, Brent Venables, like I know he fired Luttrell. I know, but man, that you talk about a complete 180 from under Lincoln Riley. Lincoln Riley, well, I guess it's not a complete 180 anymore because they couldn't stop South Carolina either. It's like the South Carolina defense, like to Coach's point, is legit.
It is.
That defense is very legit, very physical, very sound. They actually have a little bit of depth on that defensive side of the ball. I think South Carolina is better than we're giving them credit for, but man, like they're not, 3 touchdowns in your own house better. In my opinion, they shouldn't be that, much better than Oklahoma, but they certainly were. Brent Venables, man, I don't know. I was a big believer in Brent Venables when he took that job, because I thought, what I see though is I do think like Brent Venables has a little bit of that Dabo in him from being with Dabo Swinney for so long, where he's a little bit like maybe a little bit too stubborn, maybe a little bit set in his ways, maybe a little bit like this is the type of team I'm going to build, and like I'm going to keep at it, probably maybe be a little bit too loyal, maybe hold on a little bit too long with some of these guys. Because it was clear from the very, like, letting Dylan Gabriel walk to Oregon for Jackson Arnold, like, it was clear from the out of the gate that wasn't the right decision. And so it seems like, maybe there's something there that Brent Venables has got to figure out for himself.
I think he's cursed. it's not he. Sorry, it's Oklahoma fans and that university. They cursed themselves when they wrongfully pushed him out. Bob Stoops pushed out Brent Venables, let him walk to Clemson. Kept Mike Stoops around town. Obviously, Josh Heupel was part of that as well.
Boy,
Prime Dog, welcome back, my man. Definitely got kicked in the mouth by Georgia. You can keep your quips. They're funny. We've covered all that. Just rewind to the first 35 minutes of the show. We talked about how much he kicked their butts. Glad to experience the Dog fans in person. It was a good time. But yeah, it's pretty cool to see as a Texas fan. But at the same time, Oklahoma has so much dang pride in that program. They've been so good under Josie, the current athletic director up there, and it's hard to see them standing pat for too terribly long. And I mean, you're looking at a potential second 7-loss season, and in Brent Venables' tenure at Oklahoma, if things continue to go on this trend, they just have the main game that'll get them to 5 wins, I believe. And then from there, they're fighting for bowl eligibility. You're good, Prime. Thanks for being here, my man. I even barked like a dog, dude, because I lost a bet. So definitely rewind and go check it out.
It was around minute 42, if you're looking for it.
God damn it.
Minute 42. Just go there if you want to see Ghost bark. And even if you guys, folks who saw it, if you want to see it again, just rewind about around minute 42.
Let's say I'm sure this one. I normally clip at least one thing from every show. I won't be clipping much from this one, but
we'll help you out. We know how to clip things. It'll be great.
Dang, man. No, I figured as much, and that's more than fair. I am open to anything being clipped. That's the thing. You get on here and you're talking. I feel like obviously you're up to be clipped. That's how it goes. And so, but yeah, like I said, Prime, one last time. I really did think it was going to be a tough game for Texas to win. I told the wife walking out the front door, it's like I'm not expecting great things. I don't know. It's just a feeling, man. I just was waiting for Georgia to step up and be Georgia. It just felt like everybody was right here screaming Texas by this, Texas by that. And
it's also the curse of game day, man. When all those Texas icons went up, it was come on.
Yeah. Hey, I like the chances, man. We're going to go 1 week at a time. It's kind of crazy. Never thought we'd be in this world. Texas beats Vanderbilt here in week 9 of the college football season. Texas would be 7-1. Texas's best win of the season would be the Vanderbilt Commodores, which is a wild thing to say.
Well, if Georgia and Texas, I'll say this right now. I'll call it out. If Georgia and Texas end up in the SEC championship game and you can figure out, a way to make it, bring your friends, whatever, we'll smoke a whole hog in my backyard. I'm like 20 minutes from the stadium. We'll smoke a whole hog. We'll do some whiskey. We'll do some commingling in the backyard, and then head down to watch the game. So,
hey man, I would love to be there. We'll see, man. I got to handle a couple teams. I know that Vanderbilt, Arkansas A&M's not super scary to you guys, but those 3 road games for Texas, I'm like, we'll see how they all go. Thank you, Mr. Prime. It was a great day with family, friends, and Papa Kyle chimes in and says he'll be there. Mr.
Come on,
John.
Papa Kyle.
Kyle is he's a good guy to hang with. You'd enjoy that. But now I got a couple more SEC games, John. Well, actually, one more quick thought before we get you out of here. You talked about Florida a little bit earlier. Are they finding something a little bit with over there? Are they cooking a little bit? Billy Napier?
Yeah, I mean, I think
3-1 in the last 4.
I think they're cooking because he's been forced to play DJ Lagway, which I don't understand why he wasn't playing Lagway more in the beginning of the year. It's like, dude, now that Mertz is hurt, I think that's. But I will say, I think the Florida defense, again, this is a common theme right now. A common theme in the SEC is you get into late October, early November, and these defenses are full of big, physical, fast athletes. Every SEC defense, they're going to have them. They're going to have big, physical, fast athletes who can cover your guys, who will get after your quarterback, who can find they'll find their rotations, they'll find their pressure packages that work. Like, you've got good coaches, you've got good players. And so I think Florida is just in that situation. I think Florida's in the situation where they've found some different packages that can work for them on defense. And I think on offense, again, I don't understand why they weren't playing Lagway more, but I like DJ Lagway. I think DJ Lagway's if Napier if Napier keeps his job and Lagway doesn't transfer, I think DJ Lagway can be a really, really good quarterback at Florida. But yeah, I think it's more on the defense side of the ball, like everybody else, man. It's like you're finding something, and when you find it, I mean, I think Texas, like my buddy Josh pointed out earlier in the show, like Georgia only had a 32% success rate. Texas forced 3 turnovers. Like the Texas defense is playing well. It's just, the question is like, how can your offense balance that out when you get in this November schedule?
I hate to say it like this, because I don't want it to sound like I'm a savage, but I hope you guys wear out Florida pretty good. Tire them out extra good. Don't hurt anybody. I still want them to be feeling Georgia when they come to Austin on November 9th.
I'll tell you this: people have no idea, literally no idea. I've been fortunate to be relatively close to the program and close to coaches and staff and people. Like people have no idea how much Kirby Smart hates Florida, like loathes Florida. So Kirby Smart played at Georgia. Kirby Smart played in the only game in modern college football where Florida played Georgia in Athens, in Sanford Stadium. And Steve Spurrier ran up the score, put 50 on Georgia. And Kirby Smart was the starting safety in that game. And I think that has sat with him like in his soul for the last 30 years. That thing has sat with him in his soul. So I don't know if you've heard it. You've probably heard it, but the not safe for work rant that he went on at Florida at halftime, where he said, I want to break these on offense and defense. Yeah. Look at the scoreboard and laugh. Don't say, just laugh at their undisciplined, whatever. Like that was about Florida. Like that's how Kirby Smart feels about Florida. And so I think Texas, I think Kirby will do his old buddy Sark a favor and beat the brakes off Florida. Is my prediction.
I'm hoping so, man, because I'm confident about Texas going forward. I don't want anybody to think that you get whipped sometimes. Yep. Good teams get whipped. We got whipped by one of the better ones, the best college football program for the last 3 years, and so it's humbling, but like John just said, Kirby's Kirby, man. Kirby's going to step up, and he's a master motivator. We lost John. Where did John go? Wrong button, I'm assuming. But all right. Well, John does have to get to another show.
I'm here.
Hey, man.
Ghost, you're reaching prime. Like, so my kids, like all their devices go off at like 10 p.m. Eastern, and that's like 20 minutes. So they're like streaming, FaceTime, who knows what's going on in there. So you're reaching prime time.
Oh, my bad, brother. Well, I was about to let you out of here. I know you got a show to get to with Coach Hayes. You Georgia fans, check that out. John, thank you for being here. Thank you for allowing me to bark in front of you. I hope that's not too embarrassing. I don't know how often you get barked at, but glad to be here with you, man.
I always welcome getting barked at by friends, and you're a friend, so I appreciate it.
All righty, my brother. Well, guys, have a great time. Great rest of your evening. I appreciate you watching this. Please like this video for John. Appreciate you, all you guys lately that have subscribed to the channel, all you Georgia fans checking in. It's been a fun week and a half for getting to know you guys. But good luck the rest of the way, Dogs. Texas with a big one at Vanderbilt. We'll see you.